Hey, good people. Before we start this podcast, I wanted to let you know a little something. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. And not only that, there are all these creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer, just like I did. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other platforms. You can even make money from your podcast with minimum listenership. It is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So what do you need to do now? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Good day, good people. It's your girl, Kim McBride, also known as Get Keys with Kim, back for another episode of Real Talk in Real Estate. I'm excited to have joining us today Star B. Melancon of SHEbuildingHER. Star is a women's finance strategist looking to create strategies for saving, budgeting, investing, retirement, debt repayment, and an overall healthy and prosperous financial life with all of the women that she comes in contact with. Her background and degree is in microbiology. She started her career in corporate America, working in the biopharmaceutical industry as a microbiologist. So if you know nothing else today, not only does she have her finances together and she's super financially savvy, but the girl is intelligent. She then transitioned into finance and investing because of her experience in corporate America. She shared with me that usually in her field, she was the only woman of color, which led her to have a greater understanding of how wide the money gap was between Black women and white and Asian men. So now through SHEbuildingHER, she helps women in all forms to include financial education, digital products, live and virtual events, as well as one-on-one and group coaching and consulting. You can follow her on Instagram and Facebook at SHEbuildingHER_CA or on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube at SHEbuildingHER. Please help me welcome Star. Star, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate that introduction. It made me sound so important.
This is important. I'll never forget years ago, I saw a poster on a corkboard that said, "A man is not a financial plan." And so it's so interesting that as women, we're always taught that you get married, you find a man that can help financially. He's going to be the end all be all of your finances. And so I think it's equally as important that a woman have a financial plan, and that there are women out here that don't have the crab in the barrel syndrome, that they're looking to help fix each other's crown and help be the best women that we all can be. So you are super important. You are a rock star in my eyes. So thank you so much for taking a little time out of your day to help all of us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm excited about this. This is my very first podcast. So I am super, super excited about it.
And we're happy to have you. So tell us a little bit more about you. I gave just a quick excerpt about your life, but I'm sure there's some really juicy information you can share with us to let us know a little bit more about how we got here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Star Melancon. I am based out of the Bay Area, California. You touched on, me being from corporate America. My background was in microbiology, and kind of the way I got here today was spending time in corporate America, and corporate America often being the only Black woman in any of the groups or field that I was in. And so I just kind of noticed how I kind of shrank around particularly white men and Asian men when they were having what I call money conversations. So that's conversations about, how much you're making or investing or retirement planning or real estate investing, just all of these conversations. They would have them very freely. And although I did probably have something to contribute to the conversation, I always just felt very small. Like I didn't have anything to contribute. I wasn't smart enough to really join that conversation. So that's kind of where it started. Just educating myself. And then of course I went further, as far as my education with finance. And then I realized how many women around me, particularly women of color, who were not comfortable what I call joining the conversation. And so my goal is just to make sure that I eliminate that feeling from as many women as I can, and give you the tools to make you feel competent enough, because you probably are, but you just need a little bit of just a little bit of a push and a little, someone to believe in you. And then I just kind of give you the information so that if you ever come across these money conversations or these situations in general, you'll feel comfortable, joining in and offering whatever you have to offer.
And that is all of the reasons why I had to have you on this show today. We have been following each other for a few months now, and I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy your content. It is amazing. I learn something new every day, even if it's little ways to start having those conversations in relationships or amongst girlfriends, or even with yourself, like having those honest conversations. And there were a few things specifically related to real estate that I thought was interesting that I wanted to get more information about, but I also knew that could be an opportunity to educate those who are listening to this podcast that can put the two and two together, not just real estate, but talk about things like real estate investment groups
Mm-hmm.
and what we call REITs. So I wanted to take this opportunity to see if you can educate us on those two topics today. Can we start real estate investment group? That they are, how to get started, what does that mean? Where do we start the conversation when we're looking to get into real estate
So
investing?
yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we know that 90% of millionaires, right, and specifically in the United States, became millionaires through real estate. So real estate is, when it comes to a financial portfolio, or what we call like wealth or generational wealth, or any of these terms, real estate has to be included. And although we go and we get our residential homes, and that is a part of our real estate portfolio, it has to be bigger than that, and you have to, in one way or another, get started in investing in real estate, right? And so, real estate investment groups are basically entities that primarily focus on purchasing real estate as a form of income. And so, there's a couple of different ways to go about it. I know that. I think his name is Jay Morrison. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's doing he's doing really, and his organization is doing really big things within specifically the Black community. So that's one way of going about real estate investing, which he does. It's kind of like crowdfunding. And so what he's trying to bring to it is, you get these multi-million dollar properties. So it could be strip malls and hospitals, different things like that. And he's doing kind of a crowd-funded approach. And whereas he gets, investors, but not in the traditional sense. And then you all they use that money to purchase property. And so you own a little stake in these large real estate holdings, right? And so then there's another way, which are traditional real estate investment groups or real estate investment clubs, where you can, you can kind of almost apply to be a member. And there are a whole, it's very systematic, right? You qualify. There's certain things that you need to possess as far as assets and cash flow and credit and all these kind of things that kind of qualify you to join these real estate investment groups or these real estate investment clubs. And they do the same thing. Usually they're purchasing residential property, and so the real estate investment group or club will take control of all the admin and the maintenance, all that kind of stuff on the properties. And you'll receive, usually every like 3 months, a payout from your portion of that group. Okay. And so, but when I speak about real estate investment groups, it's on a much more personal level. So the way I go about real estate investment groups is literally, you you want to get with you and 6 of your girlfriends. You guys all have $10,000 to put up, Or perhaps, you have $20,000. You have a friend that's been on her job for 20 years. You got two other friends who have really strong credit, another one that has some kind of assets to leverage. And you guys all put your best foot forward, and you guys form a group amongst yourself, and you go out and purchase properties. And these properties can be to buy and hold. So like the landlord situation, and you can get money from tenants. It can be, house flipping, right? A lot of people do that. You purchase the home, fix it up, and then sell it for a profit. Or it can be simply purchasing land in underdeveloped areas, and you kind of hold it until the surrounding area starts to become developed, and then you sell that land for a profit because someone will want to come in and build on it. And so with that, it's not crowdfunding. You don't have to qualify. You just kind of take the bull by the horns, and really just form your own community and your own group, and go out and start purchasing real estate and become investors.
So that's interesting. You said something along the lines of leveraging your assets, with assets not necessarily being financial or money, we should say currency. So is it possible in these groups to look at credit as an option? If someone, if I'm the friend with the $10,000, but I have another friend that maybe has really good credit, is that something that I'm looking for in a group, or is it preferable that everyone brings something monetarily to the table, and then any other assets would be
So
a
that's a
benefit?
really great question. I'm going to start by, though, reiterating, I am not a real estate professional nor a loan professional. Okay. So let's just put that out there. I am speaking strictly from experience, and, just me studying the industry, because this is what I do. Right. And so for me, yes, credit 100% is one of the most valuable assets, right? It's very similar to if you're going to get, and this all depends also on how you plan to fund your real estate investment group. So just like a traditional real estate transaction, you have to go and get approved by a bank. The bank is going to look at everything, right? Your assets, your credit, your cash, down payment, all these things. And so it's the same situation with a real estate investment group. Although prior to you guys going and approaching a bank for funding, what you'll do is you will actually form a business under all of your names, usually an LLC, and it's called a real estate holding, right? It's just an LLC with all of the members who plan to purchase property. You form that, and within it, it will leverage your personal, like you said, credit and assets and things. So when you go to the bank will look at the business, the entity, whatever you guys, Kim McBride LLC that has 7 members. They'll look at that LLC and leverage different things from different members or different owners of Kim McBride LLC, if that makes sense.
It does. So with forming this, if we're all coming to the table possibly with different forms of assets, does that mean that we have the same percentage of ownership
So
in
that's
the
the beautiful
LLC?
thing, right? When you are forming these entities, right, to hold your real estate, you decide. You have, your statement of information for your business, or your articles of incorporation, or your bylaws. Like, these are the things that will spell out who owns how much, and all of those things. Like, it's not a set situation. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, if you do have 5 people who have $50,000 a piece, but 500 credit scores, and you have one person here that has a job for 20 years and an 800 credit score, she's very valuable. She may be even more valuable than the $50,000 that you have, specifically in California, because in California, cash is not hard to come by, right? So people with cash, a lot of people come from the South, and because it's a different life in the South, and they come to California thinking, well, I have this much in cash. It doesn't matter. They want to see your credit. They need to track all the cash, know where it came from before they'll approve you for any kind of financing. So it depends on how the members of that entity, what they decide as far as percentages and how it's broken up. But absolutely they can get the same, the same percentage, or you decide basically.
Gotcha. And is that also decided? I know I've been asked this question a few times. Let's just say there are 5
Uh-huh.
people in the group and one person decides to leave. It like the payout and what happens to then the structure of the entity. Is that something that needs to be included in
Absolutely.
the bylaws? Can we talk a little bit maybe more about what needs to be written in stone in order to
Yeah, absolutely.
proceed
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
something like this?
So, I always say when you're forming these entities, especially when you're dealing with an investment that's as large as real estate, you want to think about the past, the present, and the future, right? So past meaning you want to know if with all the members, do you have any judgments? Do you have any outstanding debts that could possibly trickle down to this business entity? Do anything in your past that will affect the present, right? And then presently, you want to think about, like you said, what is each person bringing? And then future, you want to know, hey, if you pass away, what's going to happen to your share? Do you want it? Do you want us to pay it out to someone? Have you have you done any estate planning to make sure that we know where to give your portion? If you want to leave, do you get like for instance, if you want to leave but the value of our property is less than what we originally paid, do you expect to get the amount that you originally put in, or your percentage of the current value of the property? Like, these kind of things really need to be discussed in detail. And that's why I would say that when you go about forming these business entities, don't try to just do it yourself. Like, a lot of people will try to form the LLC because you can go online to your state and kind of do it. When it comes to these kind of, um, you know, cumbersome situations, you should probably go to a professional to get it formed, which we do actually offer that service. But you do have to think far ahead, um, in those situations.
Understood. And you mentioned something I found to be important, and that is protecting the assets of the business. So I know that oftentimes, just going throughout life, we're looking for ways to protect ourselves as individuals. Is there something specifically that needs to be put in place to protect the business assets? So you talked about looking at the past. So judgments, liens, anything that might have a negative financial
Mhm.
effect on the business. Maybe can you talk about what are some ways to protect the business, and or if someone does have something in their past, maybe what is something that someone should have resolved, or what may be a red flag if someone is looking to invest in a group and this person has X, Y, and Z in their past?
So my suggestion to that would be, it's harsh, but if you are considering investing with someone who has any kind of outstanding anything that may be able to attach itself to your business, you definitely want to make sure they get that resolved beforehand. And one really easy way, and I say trick of the trade, is to have each member who you're considering adding into this entity prior to forming the LLC, for the real estate holding, have them go to a loan professional and try to get approved for a home loan on their own. Okay. And what this will do is it will automatically send off the red flags, because if you can't get approved for a home loan, and I'm not saying like, oh, you don't have enough cash or you don't have enough this, like that's not what you're looking for. But as being in real estate, if you have a judgment on your credit, you cannot move forward with a loan, with a home loan without getting it resolved. If you have any kind of really big debt, child support, back taxes, things like that, the loan officer will ask you to get these things resolved or brought up to a positive standing prior to offering you a home loan. So that's one easy way. If you're asking your friend, do you have anything, and they're saying no, it's easiest to just say, hey, all 5 of us are going to go get ourselves analyzed by a loan professional, see if anything comes back. Everybody brings their documents back to the group, and we'll proceed from there. So yes, absolutely. Make sure you know who you're going into business with.
Okay. Do you have recommendations? I know I'm giving you a lot of hypotheticals, but let's just say something, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
life does happen. So let's just say something happens after they've
Mm-hmm.
become members. Should there be something written in the bylaws or something put in place in advance? Is there any type of insurance to protect against the garnishment of any type of the business funds if something happens in one of the group
Yeah,
members'
absolutely. So,
lives?
um, it when you say something, like something is super broad. So, I would, it's kind of a case by case situation, but most times, it's very difficult for personal to impact a business entity unless the business is a single member LLC or a sole proprietorship, which is directly connected to the individual. When you go into entities that have multiple members, it's really difficult for, but not impossible for individual debts to affect that entity, if that makes sense. That is the whole point of forming the business around the individuals. So then you're not necessarily leveraging your social security numbers, but you're leveraging that's the EIN, which is AKA the social security number of your business. So it gets so that right there is one layer of defense. Just forming that business is a layer of defense so that individual, traumas doesn't affect the business. Outside of that, I mean, let's see. Hmm. I mean, there are ways to go about it, but it would depend on what the situation was, basically.
Okay. Because I know oftentimes,
Mm-hmm.
even when something is new, people feel like they want to mitigate
Mm-hmm.
as much risk as possible. What are the ways that they can not only protect themselves, but also protect the group? So I think, what it sounds like you are saying is it's important to form the LLC. That is one of the protections,
Mm-hmm.
and form it with a professional. And it just so happens that She Building Her offers that service. So if someone was interested in forming an LLC, to go to someone like you to get assistance with that. And then in addition to that, creating bylaws and statements of information or articles of incorporation that then speak to the business as a
I
secondary
would
form of
100%
protection.
agree with
Would you
that.
agree with
And
that?
a lot of the times, just to kind of elaborate on one of the things you just said, a lot of times when it comes to like bylaws and all the documents associated with the business, people in the beginning will give like really generic, they'll file really generic like statements of information and things like that. Do not do that in this case, right? Sometimes it's okay when it's, like I said, a personal or just a business that only affects you. But when it's coming to these kind of entities, do not give a generic um, statement information or articles of incorporation. Like, make it super, super thorough, like very detailed, very thorough. Leave some wiggle room because you never know what you're going to come up against. But make sure you specify all of those things. Who's getting what percentage goes to who? Is there a penalty for wanting to pull out early, right? Because real estate investment is not it's not fluid, right? The cash is not just on hand. It will affect everyone. And if it's 5 people, one person wants to pull out, the other 4 may not be able to come up with the cash to give you the return on your investment, and they shouldn't have to sell the property to give you your portion back. So all of these things need to be talked about and written out prior to finishing the formation of that business.
Right. So you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the distribution of ownership and how that works. Is it based on if it's equal, or if it's based on how much is invested, but also what happens afterwards? If for some reason you become sick, or God forbid you pass away, what happens to
Correct.
the,
And
so all
even
of that needs to
even
be in
if
there.
not as
No
extreme, but
stone.
say you get into a situation where you're about to get foreclosed on in your own home, right? You're like looking through your portfolio. What can I sell? What can I sell? Where can I leverage some cash? You need to know that if that happens, you cannot just automatically leverage this investment because there's 4 to it. So there's a lot of things that can come up yeah, in those situations.
Gotcha. Okay, we're going to take a break and then come right back.
Okay.